and welcome to this week's Jolenes Books and Writers Talk podcast. This week we welcome author and poet Cindi Handley Goodeaux. She's a children's author and has published 10 books so far. She's going to talk about her books and her process and give us some hints about being a children's book author. We really appreciate her participation and time, and we hope you enjoy the show. If you are another published author, would like to be part of the podcast, we hope you will visit southerndragonpublishing.com and check it out. We would love to hear from you. And now, without further ado, let's leave it over to Miss Cindi.
Hi, my name is Cindi. I'm published under Cindi Handley Goodeaux. I'm a children's book author. I have 9 children's books, and all of them are about friendship and kindness and inclusion. I'm a former professional clown named Giggle Blossom.
So you're an illustrator as well?
No. I work with 2 amazing illustrators, Sanghamitra Dasgupta and Jack Foster. Sanghamitra did 6 of my books, and Jack so far has done 3.
Well, I haven't had but one other children's book writer on here so far. Most of them are romance mysteries. So how do you go about creating a book, a children's book? Basically, I'm assuming elementary school, preschool?
Yes, elementary school. So ages 4 to 8 is generally what we put on the book. Some of the younger ones pictures, and the older ones like the stories. So I don't like to limit it, but you have to do that when you publish a book.
Picky about that.
You really are. But I can tell you, especially the way my first book came to be, which was kind of fun, because I've written poetry since I was 10 years old. And when I was 12, I had one of my poems published in an anthology, which was very exciting for me. And so I said, holding that book, I said, one day I want to hold a book with my name on the cover. So that is when my little dream was born. It only took 30 years for any of that to come true. But first, I had 2 6-year-old nieces, one in Florida, one in Alabama, and I wanted to stay in contact with them. So I wrote a poem about a travel-loving cat who had rainbow colors, and I sent a copy to each of them, introducing the cat as Jelly Bean with a stuffed cat. Then there was a contest several years later. This is over the period of like 3 or 4 years. There was a contest for a children's book, and I thought, we'll have a character. I'll write a story. And I am a disability advocate, so I saw that as an opportunity to bring that message to kids, to normalize disabilities. And so I wrote the story of Princess Jellybean, the adventures of Princess Jellybean. She grows up in the kingdom. Her mom reads to her about books, about the world through book. Then she decides when she gets old enough, she wants to go see it for herself. She encounters a group of children playing together, and some of them have disabilities. And so she processes the scene, saying some danced on feet, some danced on wheels, some sang out loud, some sang with happy hands. So I use that as a way to bring that message to children that these are equal things. The disabilities are a normal part of life. So didn't win the contest, didn't even place, but now I have this, creation, this character plus the story. And it was something I just kind of pocketed and just kind of played with it over time. And then eventually paid a publisher to publish my first book. That publisher no longer exists. They went to prison. That was an adventure in and of itself, but never stopped talking about my book. Now my current publisher found me on Twitter talking about my books and said, we think that this matches our ethos, and they invited me to submit books to them. And I've signed now 10 books with them. So it was a good partnership for sure. I have 4 Princess Jellybean books.
Would you consider them a traditionally published or hybrid publisher?
This is a traditional publisher, but they're called a micro publisher. Called a mom and pop shop. It's just, like an individual in their home.
Civic.
Correct. Technically, there's no exchange of money. I'm not paying for any services, so it is traditional.
Okay. Yes, there's a big debate on that on TikTok. There's a lot of scammers out there. They're charging people to publish their books, which they shouldn't do. I have Southern Dragon Publishing. I say on the front page that I teach authors how to become their own publishers, and that's what I charge for, is the teaching.
Absolutely.
I don't do the royalties or any of that stuff. I just like the name Southern Dragon Publishing.
That is a pretty cool name. Especially now that you're a dragon.
Yes. Apparently they're beginning to be very popular. I'm going to have to do that fictitious name for the state of Florida for 5 years so I can keep it. On your bio, the sheet that you gave me, you're part of an organization, children's writers.
Yes, I'm a member of what is SCBWI, which is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And they are an international organization, and they do a lot of education for us. So we have webinars we can attend. They bring in speakers. They brought in Henry Winkler. I got to be on a webinar with him, which was pretty cool. talking about his book. So they'll come and talk about their books, talk about their process. It's a wonderful organization to be connected to. It gives you exposure too, because they put your books on their website. I've tried out different memberships, and this has, to me, been the most beneficial to be a member of. So I recommend it to anyone who's even thinking about becoming a children's book author.
That was my next question in that vein. Are you a member of any local writers group?
Not at all.
Not a lot of children-specific writers groups available in North Florida. Maybe we should start one.
Right? Not that I'm aware of that. Yeah. I have taken advantage of the writers' labs that the library has done. And I've heard from a lot of great authors that way. I got to meet Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer of Eat, Pray, Love, and Big Magic, which a book really inspired me was Big Magic. So that was, very cool. And then 1,000 Words, I can't remember that author's name, but I got to hear her in January. So it was just really cool. And that's a great book to give someone to encourage them to write, because it's a bunch of different authors have written letters basically that she's compiled into this book called 1,000 Words. Something exciting to give to someone who wants to be an author, to encourage that.
You're from Jacksonville, right?
Not originally. I've been here since I was 8, so I might as well say I'm from here.
Well, I was born and raised there, so.
Oh yeah.
Yes, 5 generations worth.
Originally from Birmingham, Alabama, but my father moved us here with his job when I was 8.
Right. We get a lot of people with the transferring in, especially Navy, get stationed here and they just come back when they retire and stuff. Next question. How do you choose your illustrator for which book to work it out?
The publisher in a traditional setting actually chooses the illustrator. Okay. So one of the big 5 publishers, you have no contact with the illustrator. They pick the illustrator illustrates the book, but you are never in contact with them. Where I get to form a friendship, which is what's happened with my 2 illustrators, and I've had a lot of input, and we've done interviews together. So I've really enjoyed that process of being connected with them and, working through the process together and having some input. If they have questions or something, I may make a list of, if there's something I really want to see in the picture, like something that's very important to me is diversity. And so I want to see a diverse representation of children. I want every child to see themselves in my book. This is my ultimate goal. I will describe what I want to see in the picture. So children of different races and abilities, that's what I want to see in a picture. So I do have that kind of input where other larger publishers don't give that kind of privilege.
Okay. Another question popped in my head. I have a client who is like 30 years in the romance industry, 30, 40 years, long time. She was with the big 5, several of them. They would have a painter to do her covers.
Oh, cool.
They used to do that all the time, just paint them first and then print them. Now, everything is done digitally, I imagine.
Right. Yeah, I would imagine. Well,
okay. So that's probably how your graphic artist starts. They don't hand do it. They probably do.
Honestly, I think one does do it by hand, although she's gotten more into digital, Sangham, but I think Jack does do it digitally. And I've got to see like he posts process pictures of how it's, it started with shapes and then he works it into pictures, which is really cool.
Oh, okay. So they can get the feel for your words to match up.
One thing I love about Jack is he'll learn something new and then my book will come out and he'll use it in the book. So he learned how to illustrate looking through glass and representing that there's glass between you and the character. And I had a book called Fish Patty, which is about a little girl obsessed with fish, and it was perfect for the fish tank. So I just love that he learns a new process and then uses it in one of the books.
Now that is a very professional artist. Probably a sore subject you may not want to answer. With our governor banning things left and right, censoring stuff, especially about diversity in school. And then they passed the legislation that any child under 15 can't be on any social media, period, as a children's author. And how do you feel about that? They're limiting your freedom or speech. Amendment 2, right? Not 2, but 1.
I feel discouraged that we in 2024 would be so narrow in our thoughts that we would want to censor books the way that they're being censored in schools. I think that we should trust children and parents to be able to decide, or parents should be deciding for their children. The school should not be deciding for their children. It's the way I feel. That a child should be able to read what they want to read within reason. Obviously, they wouldn't pick up a romance book and be okay, oh, sure, go ahead and read that.
No, they don't have no pictures. They're no fun.
Right? That was me as a kid. Exactly. But certainly these are not times that we should shy away from embracing people as people The world is getting bigger and broader and wider and more colorful. And I just think, for me, love between human beings. You share the planet with me, I have love for you. You have no other qualifier that is a requirement. We don't have to agree on a thing. We share the planet, I have love for you. And I have respect for you as a human being. And I want to make sure that you have what you need to survive in this life. And I just think it's gotten very ugly. And I think we've forgotten the love.
Too many people want to control what other people are doing instead of concentrating on their own selves.
Exactly. If you don't want to read those books, don't read those books.
Yeah.
But nobody can read those books.
That is not going to discourage you from continuing on creating beautiful books about rainbow children.
I create books about kindness, friendship, and inclusion for everybody. I honestly believe everybody has a seat at the table. Everybody's voice has value and should be heard from. So my books, especially like Jelly Bean just goes out and just as wide-eyed with wonder and seeing the world for the first time is how I kind of see the character. She's heard about it through books, but she's experiencing it for the first time. And she's meeting a bunch of different types of characters. And she's just curious and just, has questions. In one of the books, she's heard the word imagination. She's read the dictionary, what it means, but she doesn't know what it is to imagine until one of the characters uses quote unquote magic, smoke and mirrors to help her use her imagination. So then she understands. So it's just the curiosity is a big part of what I write about. So just be curious, ask questions.
Would you ever want to self-publish?
I'm not against it. I have a self-published book of poetry. As a child, when it became my dream to become a published author, poetry was what I wrote for the first 20-something years of my life. And so for a long time, publishing was something I couldn't do. I was given the impression very early about subsidized publishing and that I had to pay in order to be published because there's too many authors out there. And it's not like it used to be where books were brand new and, authors got discovered. And so I just had it in my mind very early when I was a teenager that I had to pay to get my stuff published. To be able to self-publish, I think is a wonderful thing. I think that it should absolutely be out there for anybody and everybody to be able to publish. I think perhaps it's best if they have somebody else take a look at their work before they publish, just to put something of quality out there, grammatically, free of errors, because that takes you out of the story. If I'm reading a book, there's blatant typos and errors and spellings. So I think it benefits somebody to go take their book through a particular process to a finished product and then self-publish. Yes, I think it's a wonderful option. And I have used that option myself, and I would use that option again in the future. And I recommend it when people say, I've got this book, how do I get published? Well, you have options. You can take the time to submit to agents and publishers and work through that process and prepare yourself for plenty of rejection because that's part of the process. Or you can take it into your own hands and go through the self-publishing process and pretty much just decide. And then you, of course, need to market your book like every other author. So it's another option.
There's a growing movement among indie authors about some of the minimum steps that you really need to take before you actually push the button. And one of those is to make sure that you go through a professional edit of some kind or take classes for editing yourself and learn the process and practice. Because we all want to present our stories in the best possible light.
Exactly.
So that they endure. But we're tired of people taking all of our money.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'll tell you, I had a book, I believe 3 years ago. It's my most popular book. And I have sold hundreds of copies of this book. It's been featured regularly in blogs. And then one friend of mine bought a copy and found a misspelling in the book. And nobody had ever caught it. My editor didn't catch it. I didn't catch it. My publisher herself didn't catch it. Those things happen. And so we have since had it corrected. But it was a shock. It really was a shock. And so because I don't want my stuff out there, my work out there without polishing it before it goes out there to market. It's just important to me that I present a story that somebody would be proud to give as a gift. And if it's full of errors and typos, I don't think I would be very proud to have that given as a gift.
Even the big five, every single book ever published has one. It could have up to 5 to 10 different things that's wrong throughout. Little things. Probably a space missing or a word missing or from and form. Those get missed a lot. Yeah. You're not careful. I have word read aloud through the whole book before I get ready to publish.
It's a great idea.
It really helps that last bit to make sure that you have the commas in the right place. I'm learning more and more Every book I do.
That's another tool. We look for our tools as authors. Those are very important to us. So that's another tool. That's wonderful.
Yes. I highly recommend that to everybody. You can do it through Chrome as well.
Okay.
Chrome will read back to you. It's got a little read aloud function that you can add to the Google Docs. I like the Word one because I can change the voice. If I get tired of the man speaking to me, I can change it to a woman. If I feel spicy, I can change it to an Australian if I want,
I have options. I love it.
I have options, and your brain, it needs that bit of difference. It's one of the authors, when he gets dragged down or has problems writing, he changed the font to Comic Sans, for instance.
Right.
And it's a Times Roman. He has Comic Sans, and that just helps his brain say, hey, this looks a little bit newer. Let's just fire on some more ideas. So
very nice. That's a good tip. Oh, I like that.
Okay.
It all kind of blend together. And that makes sense, changing the font, how that would kind of flip something on in your brain to go, wait a minute, this is different. Let's take our time with this.
Yep, it helps. And the other thing, is there any other things that you would like to give, like 3 tips for children's writers? What would be your top 3?
I will tell you, every January, I use that month to set up myself for creativity for the year. I take classes. If there's a free webinar out there, I'm taking the webinar. I've paid for some classes. I'm reading books about writing, about inspiration, about creativity. I'm using that month to just kind of prepare myself. Like Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert is a book I recommend to everybody because it's about being fearlessly creative. And I used to read that every January for like 3 years. I read that every January. Another thing that I do is Story Storm. That's another thing I highly recommend. If you Google Story Storm, every January, between January 1st and January 31st, you read a blog entry a day. You have, well, I guess through the 30th, but still, a blog entry a day. And these are authors and illustrators and people in the business who are sharing about their process. How do they come up with this character? How do they get to be published? How do they send something in to an agent? So it's something that really stimulates it, but it trains your mind to seek out creativity, seek out inspiration everywhere. So I was literally driving down the road and I saw a sign and it said Magic Cafe. And I'm sitting in traffic looking at Magic Cafe and I'm thinking, what is a Magic Cafe? What would a Magic Cafe be in a children's book? So ideas that it starts sparking. And so that's just stayed with me. And I write that down. And you write one a day for that time. And then you can get prizes. It's a lot of fun. But for me, it's the training your brain for inspiration, which has been what I got the most out of it. So that would be one. I would say take advantage of everything that you can absorb in this world of children's books and in the world of illustrations, everything you can, information-wise. Join groups. There's wonderful groups on Facebook. Join things like SCBWI. Take advantage of their classes, read their things they have online. Just immerse yourself in this world if this is what you want to do. The other thing I would say is learn about the publishing process. Learn about your options. Don't think that there's just one avenue, one way to do things. Find out, how can I get published? Go out and Google these things. How can I find an illustrator? There's a lot of different ways to do that. There's a place called Fiverr, Fiverr. Don't know how you feel about that, but I was a seller on there when I was a clown. I sold videos and I would do greeting videos in my character. So I know there are people out there who are doing, people offering editing. There's people offering illustration. So it's just a matter of finding what you need to make it happen. So ask questions. And I've had people come to me and ask me questions and I don't mind. I share with them what I can, what I've learned. It's a great big world out there. And there's a lot of information. That's 2. So you said 3 things?
Yeah, one more.
I would say build your community. Begin to surround yourself with people who will encourage this in you if this is something you want to do. Talk about, I want to become a children's book author. I want to write about what topic? What do you want to write about? Everybody has a book in them. I really do honestly believe this. Everybody has a book in them. It's a matter of the people who sit down and actually do it. Those are the books that you see in the store. It is something anybody can do, but what do you want to write about? Build your community so you've got people around you who will encourage you. But also when you write something, these become your beta readers. Here, can you read this and tell me what you think? Give me some feedback. My very first book, I wrote the first version of it, gave it to some friends of mine to read. But one came back with some very harsh feedback about my character and a situation I put her in that I didn't think was dangerous, but her perspective, it felt dangerous. And so I changed what I wrote based on her feedback. It's not something I thought of. I didn't think of it dangerous at all, but it's because I'm a very outgoing person. And we're talking about this character is a child at one point, and in that same situation, she can't do the things that I do. She can't talk to the people the way I talk to. So just making sure she was safe in that situation, because the child's going to read this and think, oh, well, I guess I can go do that. It's having people who give you thoughts, that perspectives that you don't necessarily have. So those would be the 3 things I would say.
Now, you're on social media of some kind?
I'm pretty much on every social media. My favorites are Facebook, which I have a Write Cute Stories page, and Instagram, I have Write Cute Stories. I'm on TikTok. I like to post when I have a book come out. I like to go out there and post about the book. It's just a fun platform. It's full of a lot of silliness. I think it's just Author Cindi.
Author Cindi?
I think it's just Author Cindi.
C-Y?
C-I-N-D-I. I was born as Cindy, C-I-N-D-I. And people ask are you a Cynthia? I tell them I was born in a small Alabama town and they didn't have enough letters for that. So I'm Cindy with 2 I's, C-I-N-D-I.
There you are. We're already friends.
Well, there you go.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was your friend.
Oh, I'm glad we are. Glad we're friends. I think it's a wonderful platform. I see a lot of authors really utilizing it, which I think is wonderful. And I do kind of go through waves when I'm promoting a book. Of course, I'm going to be more active out there and post about my book, and I'll post my countdowns. There's a fun way to create a countdown for one of my cover reveals, is to have the numbers, 10, 9, 8 with different images going down to my book covers. That was a lot of fun, because I try to find a different way to reveal the cover every time.
Okay, well, I would suggest your shorter poems. I would go ahead and start reading those on there to build up your readership, because I personally like them, especially fun ones that rhyme. I love limericks.
The book I have out there with my poems is a book of, I think it was 44 poems across time. And I put the age I was at the bottom of each of the pages, because I was like 16, just to give a perspective about where that came from. When I was pregnant, I wrote a poem about being miserable and needing caffeine. Yeah. Painting is something else I like to do, but I struggle with my inner critic with that one. But it's something I've challenged myself to do more of. I turned 50 last year, and I've challenged myself to do more of it, to not listen to that. And so I've decided that it's expression, not perfection. And that's kind of become my mantra whenever I'm being creative in some way. I'm like, it's expression, not perfection. Every time that voice rises up that says, that doesn't really look that good, people aren't going to like that. It's expression, not perfection, kind of, quiets it back down. This year, I want to try watercolor. Normally, I do acrylic. So I bought a watercolor palette and some watercolor paper, and I'm going to do it.
There's a lot of lovely YouTube videos showing you how to do that. There's a girl on TikTok with the red hair. She does the rainbow colored giraffes and stuff, and she does a painting lesson with watercolors. If you ever see her, watch some of her stuff. She's a lovely lady.
There is one I follow on TikTok that does watercolor, and she's kind of experimental with it. That's been a lot of fun, and talks about, if you want it to look this way, then you do this. If you want it layered, or if you want it really, really watery, you'll do this. So I've been taking notes, because I definitely want to try it.
Okay. Well, do they have any of those painting wine parties?
Oh, I'll have to find it. I don't know about for watercolor. I've done that for acrylic before. I'll have to look. I didn't think about that. I'll have to see if there's one out there for watercolor. That would be super cool.
Give it a go. Well, Miss Cindy, thank you so much. Any of your other writer friends who would like to join the party? I'm trying to get at least 15 interviews for this season. I had 15 last year. I'd rather have 16 this year. All righty. Well, thanks so much, and have a lovely night. Well, that was a fun, short but sweet podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you would like to be a guest on any of our podcasts for this year, we hope you will visit the southerndragonpublishing.com website. And until next time, we wish you a good week.